Well, welcome everyone to Zahara Teaches What is Love with Jim and Harry's book club. And we're looking forward to sharing with you this story. And again, just to begin, Jim, about a year and a half ago, I can't quite remember, suggested that I should write another book in the Zahara series, because the first book was geared for a little bit older crowd, and he thought there should be another book for a younger crowd. And so I created this particular book, and now we're doing this teaching of it. And the book really starts on chapter 2. The first chapter is just an introduction, as Zahara is a teacher, and introduces Sydney Banks into the framework of what we are teaching. But the story really started in chapter 2, where Bibi is introduced, and her wisdom is introduced, and her talking to Zahara is introduced. And Zahara is going back in time when she was younger and talking to Bibi. And this chapter is of historical importance to me personally. And the reason is it answered a question that I had in my mind about 3P and the way it was being taught. And because at that particular point in time, I was teaching to the Native American Indian communities. And within that community, I was teaching a self-esteem course with another 3P practitioner. And it was obvious to me that the students, the kids, really liked the teaching, but they didn't like the stories. The stories were white man's stories that did not relate to their psyche, to their mind. And so I realized that I had to produce a story that was more relevant to their culture, not just 3P teaching, which a lot of people in 3P are stuck in. It has to be a certain way. And so this was the beginning of where I was starting to understand that the essence, the feeling of the 3P can still be translated without working within a structure of it has to be this, it has to be that. And it's also was the beginning where I was starting to take a look that different cultures have different ideas and ways that they want to hear the 3 principles. And so I went to a Native woman that I respected, and she started the story, this particular story. And she wrote about half of it, and then I wrote the other half of it. And it became a benchmark of what I would be teaching in Native American classes. So I would go around North America teaching this particular story, except naturally with Zahara. Her name was Alita, and she was a Native American girl. And as I went around that story, I then started to teach in my daughter's class as well. She taught grade 2 in Vancouver, Canada, and I would go and I would bring my drum, and I'd bring my pipe, and all these different parts of the Native American culture, and I would teach that to the kids and so on. And I love teaching this story because it's about self-esteem, about how someone can be sad, a little kid can be sad and then be happy, and the love that comes from working with an elder. And so the transition of what I was learning was that I could teach 3 principles, not just the way other people were teaching it. I could teach it relative to the culture, relative to what people want to do. And that's when Jim suggested I write the second book in the Zahara series, it was natural for me to really begin the book with this chapter because it was the beginning of where I was starting to understand that people of Africa have a different sense of how they want to receive the three principles than, say, North Americans do, which are much more psychologically geared. And so this story, and in this story, there's also historically a concept in it that really also helped me, and that was the sun. The sun is always there, and it's covered by clouds. And in that metaphor, the sun always being there is your spirit. Inside of you is always there shining, but it's covered up by clouds, thinking negative thoughts. And those clouds, when you sort of accept those clouds, that they're there, and they'll drift away and they'll show the sun again. So that's another one of the metaphors. So this chapter, as I mentioned, has really meant a tremendous amount to me. And it was a transition to what I am doing right now in Africa and how I am approaching Africa. And so with that in mind, I'll turn it over to Jim.
Great, Harry. I enjoyed your explanation of how the story has come about, and also how you see it as and being tailored to the indigenous culture. That's all really beautiful. One thing that struck me, just you might say it's a side theme in the play or in the story, is the thought process that goes into creation, and how the story begins with young Zahara coming to Grandma Bibi in tears, and this is beautiful because she wanted to do something beautiful for Bibi, and she chose to do her drawing in school, of this beautiful sunset thing, and then it was damaged, water damaged, and so she was unable to complete. And when Bibi was told about this, first of all, she felt the love from her granddaughter, actually thinking about her and wanting to make a gift for her. And then she went on and said, then you will have another vision for another picture that you can do. And the question came up. A lot of us will just skip by that word, and that's that statement. You will have another vision, but Zahara says to me, "What's a vision?" And now we got a question that, as I say, most of us will have skipped over because we think we know what a vision is, or it's just a common word, vision. But no, this vision is the way creation happens. Sometimes it's one form of it. It's an example of it. You visualize. There's another word, and then you fill in your vision. You put it on the paper, and that is thought coming into form. That is an essential three principle. That principle of thought, that thought manifesting. So I found that pretty deep when you think of it as a little children's story, and I mentioned that as one of the essential themes that we're going to be looking at. So those are my reactions to this sweet story.
That's exactly, Jim, what I wanted to for people to see. Vision is a mystical experience,
Yeah.
not an intellectual experience.
It's spiritual.
a spiritual or mystical
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah.
They're both the same. They're both
They
two
are, Harry.
words meaning
They
the
are.
same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and that is very important when you work with the indigenous people, the North American Indians or the African people. They're very mystical, and they have mystical gifts, and we have mystical gifts. And what I experienced when I worked with Native American Indians, Jim, was I had these mystical gifts, the ability to have a vision, but I didn't know it.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
just, I
Perfect.
just did, yeah. And then I said, "Oh, isn't this cool? This is like be good in sports or being
Yeah. Yeah.
intelligent."
Yeah. It's
Very,
it's like typical 3P lack of awareness of such.
yeah,
You
exactly.
know, we're all spiritual, but so many of us are hiding from it, are frightened of it, can't explain it. So, we stay away from it. But it's part and parcel of us. It is actually this the central issue of us.
Absolutely. And when we open up to that, we open up to who we are,
Hmm.
not just the physical who we are, or the career who we are, or even that we live in a refugee camp and this is who we are. We open up to the superior gifts that God has given us as human beings. And and each person has these individual gifts, different gifts. And
Hmm.
it's for us to open our minds to that.
Hmm.
And when that happened, when I opened up to the ability to have a vision, I opened up to seeing who I am.
Yeah.
And
Nice.
yeah, and in an ordinary way, like it wasn't a big deal. It was just another gift that God has given us. Like God has given you the ability to think. It's just
Sure.
an ordinary gift,
Yes. And everybody has it.
and everybody has it. And
Yeah.
everybody experiences that pureness of thought in their own separate reality, in their own individual uh, ability to see truth,
Level of consciousness.
level of conscious. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a cool little talk we had there.
Yes.
Okay, so we're now going to, shall we slip into
Absolutely. Let's go. I
the
hear you got
this
a great reader, so I want to listen.
oh, this guy is unbelievable. And just a sec here. Oh, what's this? What's uh yeah. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, chapter 2. Zahara teaches what is love, and read by our other co-host, James Beck, Jim Beck.
Part 2. Zahara's story about Bibi. Miss Zahara tells her class about when she was 6 or 7 years old and living in Naka Valley refugee camp. She loved her caring grandmother, Bibi McKenna. Each time Zahara saw her, she was so happy to run to her and talk. Zahara thought to herself, Bibi takes time to listen to me, to sit with me and understand me when I'm feeling sad or happy. Zahara's mother could see how time with Bibi was helping her daughter feel more joy. Zahara's mother could see it in her smile and her sparkling eyes. One day, Zahara came home from school feeling sad and disappointed. She went over to see Bibi. Bibi kneeled down to listen to Zahara and asked what had happened. Zahara's heavy feeling was obvious as she spoke. I was hoping to give you a gift, Bibi. I painted you a picture. It was a beautiful picture of many colors. It was a picture of you looking up at the evening sun. Now it is spoiled. Water spilled on it and the colors ran together. Bibi sat down and lifted Zahara onto her lap. How loving you are to make a picture for me. I will never forget this special gift. You have told me about the picture, and I can see it in my mind. I know you will have a vision for another picture. Bibi, what is a vision? Asked Zahara. Well, Zahara, imagine when you are first learning to draw and are using your mind to think of what you want to draw. When you quiet your mind and get in touch with a magical feeling, you will begin to picture the thing you want to draw. You may even feel right at the place you are drawing. Connect with the spirit and believe in what you are doing, and the vision will appear magically. Zahara sat quietly on Bibi's knee. She was feeling better now. She began to understand that underneath a sad feeling of disappointment, a fresh feeling of happiness is peacefully waiting to shine again. Zahara looked at the sky and saw the sun pop out from behind the clouds. At that moment, she recognized that good feelings are like the everlasting sun, but sometimes they get clouded over with a sad thought. Zahara felt safe and loved as she sat on Bibi's knee, knowing the special feelings Bibi had for her. Bibi gave Zahara a big hug. I get so much from your visit, Zahara. I love when you visit me. Zahara's eyes sparkled. I get so much when I visit too. Giving is receiving, and that makes like a circle, doesn't it, Bibi? That's right, Zahara. It is like a circle. Bibi, I just had a vision for a new picture. I will put you and the people you love in a circle looking up at the evening sun, Zahara said happily. That will be a special gift, Zahara, one that I will never forget, Grandmother McKenna replied respectfully, as her eyes slowly gazed up into the beauty of the setting sun. She was happy that Zahara was learning so much about life and the world out there. Zahara's childhood was full of memories such as these, and because of this, she always felt blessed in an elder's company. As she grew older, Zahara began to marvel how the Great Spirit had created Mother Earth and the evening sun. She also wondered how this newfound knowledge could help her people. Perhaps it was the love she felt in her heart, and this made her happy. After telling the story to the young students, she asked the following questions and had a wonderful discussion with the excited students. Question 1. Why was Zahara sad? Question 2. What does the sun represent in the picture? And what do the clouds represent? Question 3. What is a vision? Question 4. How did Grandmother Bibi make Zahara happy? She assigned her students the following homework. She asked each of the students to draw a picture of what they loved the most, and after showing it to Zahara, she then asked them to give it to someone they love.
So we have just read the story, and one of the things that touched me was the feelings behind the story. And I mentioned to Jim that these stories are shorter than Zahara Ask What Is Love, because it's an older crowd. So we want the stories to be simpler and in some ways uh, easier to understand. So, uh, Jim, I'll ask you, and why was Zahara sad?
Well, she was unable to live those moments that she was anticipating. She couldn't wait to give this drawing, this painting rather, to her grandma. And then she spilt water on it and the colors ran and she no longer had, that path ahead. That was the great one, that celebrating what she made and showing it to Bibi, etc. was, that was gone now. And she just had what was left of the runny paint. So that made her sad. She didn't know it wasn't going to happen the way she thought it was going to happen. So,
And in this shows us how, as human beings, we are dealing with the world that is sweet and bitter. It
sure.
is important to understand that when we're dealing with the physical world or our world, that the outside will sometimes happen in a negative way. I was driving my car and I blew a tire when I went over a sharp edge that construction was doing. So we are going to be experiencing physical things that happen that will make us disappointed or sad. And that is part of the three principles. That not only to have a good feeling, but how to understand that we also have bitter feelings or disappointed feelings, but they do not have to dominate, control us. And that is where the wisdom of Bibi came in, where she didn't condemn, she didn't say to Zahara, oh, you shouldn't feel sad. Oh, you should, that's a negative feeling. How can you do that? She didn't do it that way. She did it with compassion, which is, by the way, a word that Jim loves. She had compassion for Zahara, could feel the disappointment in her. It was a real feeling, and not one that was to be thrown away as if it is nothing type of thing. Okay. Now we go to an old image that Dr. Roger Mills brought into the three principles. This was his metaphor. That was what I would call the first great metaphor beyond what Sydney Banks was teaching. He was very good with metaphors. So what does the sun represent in the picture? What do the clouds represent? And we can have a little discussion. By the way, the others are free to ask questions as well.
And answer.
Yeah, even better. So, Jim, in your mind, what is the power of this metaphor? And he used it in relationship to self-esteem.
Well, I'm not, a metaphor it's our way of trying to explain the unexplainable. Um, we, when we're dealing with the three principles, it's all about these metaphors. Um, we will have an insight. When we have an insight, a message from within, we have a certain reaction to it. We actually gain in our level of consciousness. That is what 3P is all about, is growing like that. And when we try to share that then with a client or a friend or a relative, um, it's like it's impossible to convey that feeling. What we do is we throw out metaphors in a an attempt to reach somebody else with the beauty that we've just discovered. And and the only way for that to happen is for them to take that step inside, for them to ride that metaphor inside in their own world and have that aha moment. that why am I unhappy? Am I unhappy because of an outside thing? Well, apparently so. That's what we why we say why were you sad? Well, I was sad because I couldn't give you my picture. Things didn't work for me. It was outside, and Bibi tries to take her inside, and she does take her inside in one quick statement, and it is, "You will have another vision." And when Zahara hears that word, that vision, then what is a vision? She's already gone inside because she's open to an answer that she doesn't know. What is a vision? It's no longer, I'm upset because my paint ran. It's, let's get in the now. What is a vision?
So the metaphor sort of was the bridge that took her
They
into.
always are, Harry. They always are. They don't always work. They're just what we do. I mean, how many times do you read Sydney Banks or listen to Sydney Banks, and the character in the book or the story he's telling says, "Okay, well, let me try to tell it to you in this way. Maybe you'll understand." And it's what is it? It's a different metaphor. And like that, it's a continually we're working with metaphors because we are working with the unexplainable in an attempt to reach that feeling that we have that we want to share.
It's a really important point. I really love that point you made. It's unexplainable. The spirit, the message of what 3P points to is unexplainable. It has to be experienced. And what metaphors do is they relax the personal mind. You get into a visual rather than an intellectual 1, 2, 3, 4. This is what I do. And it carries you back into a feeling inside. When Sydney Banks sometimes talked, he said, anytime what I am saying, that is not the truth. The truth is before. It's in the silence, in this emptiness inside of you. And then what you express is already not the truth. So all you can do is put out a metaphor, and that is like an echo of the truth. And it's but what it does is it relaxes our personal thinking. It gives us a visual image. And it also, Jim, for me, when I first heard this sun and cloud image, it questioned, I couldn't understand it. So it was like it brought questions into my mind. And it took maybe 6 months for me to understand to a greater understanding of what it
Sure.
actually was saying. Because
Yeah, and Harry, the thing that you're getting to is it's the feeling.
yes,
There's a feeling behind that metaphor. There's a feeling under that metaphor. There's a feeling transmitted through that metaphor if you can listen for that feeling, if you can feel that feeling. So the other great piece of guidance is listen for a feeling. Listen for that feeling. That's all you're going
and,
to get out of that metaphor.
share that feeling
Yeah,
and
it's all
share
about
that.
that feeling. One of the first metaphors I ever heard, a very common phrase, um, he could run like a deer. What does that mean? To every one of us, it means something different. We have to figure out what running like a deer is. I mean, it's a feeling, is what it is. It's a feeling of freedom. It's a feeling of unrestricted joy. And the words are just words. They try, and we're trying our best with the words. For one thing, it goes in differently in different languages. I mean, It's got to be metaphors. It's got to be something more precise, which is a feeling. It's got to be that feeling that you feel from within your soul.
And each language will needs metaphors for different reasons. English is not a visual language. It's a clinical language. It is not very good at describing feelings, but it's the universal language that the world has accepted. So, for example, Spanish has 19 different words for love. We have one. And that just shows where the emphasis is on the Spanish versus the English translation. Now, the other interesting thing, it was originally taught, it isn't anymore, but it was originally taught in relationship to self-esteem. And basically what it was saying, that when you have high self-esteem, the sun is out. You have that feeling that high. And when you have low self-esteem, that's when the clouds are there, and you cannot. But the idea is that the clouds, when we are in a negative feeling, a negative space, sometimes we think it feels so permanent. But the idea is that the sun is always there. And then that translated in 3P, that you are never broken. You are always in your mental health. You're always in my language, you can always feel the spirit inside of yourself. The human spirit is the sun, and it's always shining. And then we pretend with our thinking, we create clouds that cover up the sun. But what the primary teaching is, that your spirit is always connected to God. Always. You're always alive with the Holy Spirit inside of you. But we are thinking people, and since thought creates a feeling, and when we get a disappointed feeling like Zahara had, it covers our heart. It makes our heart sad. But as soon as Bibi directed her to let go of the clouds in her mind, the natural beauty of kids, the effervescence of forgetting the past and just getting into this newfound alive feeling, became real. And that is our teaching, that the kids are already understand about the sun. They already can feel it. And we see kids all the time. They get crying, and the next second they're laughing and playing. Adults, not so much. 2 weeks later, they're still talking about what they were sad about. And they're creating the clouds. And so that's the other part of the metaphor, Jim, is we create these clouds with our thinking, negative thinking, and we hold on to those clouds, and we pretend that the clouds are real. They are real in the moment as a human being, but they're not real in the moment as a godly person, as a spirit within. And that freedom that we have means we pay less attention to the clouds and a little more attention to the warmth, the beauty of the sun. And that's a beautiful, to me, that is a beautiful, beautiful metaphor. And remember, the metaphor is not what you are teaching. Listen to Jim. You're teaching a beautiful feeling that is inside of you. And when it comes out, you're just an ordinary person who is lucky to see the truth of love, happiness, forgiveness, the truth that the kids deserve to be happy. They want to be happy. Okay. Now we go to what we have already talked about, but we will talk a little bit more. By the way, if anyone else wants to say anything, and that includes you, Mark, by the way, you're free to share anything. Uh, uh, what is a vision? We've talked quite a bit about that, but why don't we go visit it one more time? Go ahead, Jim.
I think I shot my bolt on the vision.
Okay. Well, you did pretty good on it, though.
Uh,
Well,
yeah, I mean, it is a spiritual experience. We can, read about visions or so on, and they'll come in all shapes and sizes. But I love the way that Bibi it says you will have a vision for your next, for your next picture. It makes it simple. It puts it on the child level where, it belongs really. It's that simple. It's just simple. It doesn't have to be a vision that carries on for hours or that somebody appears in your world or that kind of vision. It is what we do when we get a plan, when we are lit up by an idea, something that we um, know about for building our future, something that's a happy secret, um, however you want to put it. We visualize our futures, we visualize what we want to be, we visualize where we want to, where we're going to find joy, or, it's like yeah, a thought can be a vision, and it's just that we don't understand it. We find it so uncommon when it's really common, but we don't recognize it. And it's just a little bit of a wake up, something that's around us all the time. You get an idea, you want it. You're working in your garden, you visualize it clean, without the weeds, or you visualize, gee, what would it be like if I planted? Like when Sid was working on his yard and he put in his septic system, then at the very end of the system, he planted a cherry tree. That was a perfection. That was his vision as it happened. Now, when did he get it? I don't know. That's details. He could have been working on it on the project when he did, or it might have been right at the very beginning. I can't wait to get this done. I'm going to plant a cherry tree right at the end of it, or other things that would happen, in the physical, but spiritual. Um, he wanted a little bridge on his property, and ultimately, before you knew it, we went over and there's this curved bridge that he's put in a certain area where it's logical that you could have a bridge there. It was all done for the beauty of the moment. Those are simple life details that are all related to a vision. I'm talking about visions that Sid would have had, that any human could have. How do you want to build your cabin? How do you want to make that boat? How do you want to draw that picture? How do you want to make that dress? What clothes will you get when you're going to that event? It's all visionary, all spiritual.
all
It's
spiritual, and it also sometimes it comes. Some people are more visual than other people, Jim.
Mhm.
They're just, and they're interested in the mystical answers as well as the physical, where the bridge goes, and so
Oh, sure.
it's exactly the same process. What you're
Hmm.
describing, perfect.
Yeah,
When the bridge, Sid had a vision, but
yeah,
what sometimes what in the Native American world, Jim, all Native Americans, Indians dream, and they
yeah,
see it like prayer.
yeah,
Their body is not there, but it is instruction from the Great Spirit, and it's guiding them without
yeah,
your body, without anything of objectives or so on. And within that, people because we're dealing with a Christian world, a lot of times they will say that sounds like black magic. It isn't black. There is no such thing as black magic. There is good magic that human beings take and make it black. But the actual vision is pure, the gift. So we have things like Star Wars, where Darth Vader has this great power, but he then takes it into his own personal way. That is what black magic is. And so when I went into the Native American Indian world, Jim, as you know, I really went into the mystical side of what they were releasing in me. And I loved that. And so I would have actual visual visions that would come into me. One time I was in the sweat lodge and this wolf came and it had teeth like me and was salivating and it came right into me. And when it came right into me, my first experience was fear, not just open to. And then this 3P wisdom came into me. It said, Harry, you teach, don't be afraid. Accept what is happening. So I put aside my thoughts. It didn't make any sense. The vision did not make any sense to me. But what I did was I let it happen. And it came in. And I became the wolf. And it was a teacher. And it was teaching me and answering questions that I, Harry Durbitsky, personally wanted to know. That is another purpose. God sends you these mystical gifts because they're for you to have more faith in the spiritual side of life. And that it help you. And then people say, well, I want another one. It doesn't work like that. You don't control what God gives you. You accept, participate by accepting, and experience the teaching that is happening from this vision. And then with that added faith, it opens you up to other gifts. And then you start to see, you don't have to question a vision. You just have to trust the vision because it's coming from the Spirit. And when you do that, it's easier and easier to see the world isn't just physical, that the world is before, as our teacher would say, before time, space, and matter. That is what we are trying to point everyone to. And the beauty is we only understand it to our level of consciousness. It's beautiful. We are an expert who doesn't know what we're talking about, which is kind of cool. Which is kind of cool. So the vision, I want people to be open, that they have dreams. I want people to dream, that they have gifts. I want people, in the old days, Jim, when we were younger, the women always talked about intuition. And the guys would say, what is that? What is this intuition? That's what we're talking about, this inner instinct that is a fact inside of yourself.
Sure.
And when you learn you can trust that, it grows.
Yeah.
And when it grows, you become who you are. If you have mystical gifts, you should be open to them, not just the intellectual gifts, not just the physical gifts. And when you open up to them, you start to see that God is guiding you, not my little mind is guiding me and what I think is so important. So visions, in a way, help us to become more spiritual and to have faith in the spiritual reality. The sun is always there. The sun is the spiritual. Okay.
I've got one little story for you, Harry, and then
Oh, good. Go for it,
certainly
Jim.
it's not quite of that power that you were using, but I love to write poetry. I don't do it that often these days. But when we first came back to Salt Spring Island about 18 years ago, um, for the first year or so, maybe two, we would go out once a week in the car somewhere, and we'd stop, and I would pull out a pencil and paper and sit down and write a poem about the place that we had gone to. And here's an example. This is a profound example for me. We went to a place here called Duck Creek Park. It's very wild and very, deeply forested. There is a creek rushing through it, and there's some benches there, a few. And we sat down on this. I sat down on this bench and pulled out the pencil and paper and looked down at the rushing water as it went by. And I went to the quiet space, and it just started coming. The spirit of Duck Creek flows, carrying its precious truth from birthing water to sea, a sacred journey. And then it carries on, owls, cougars, deer. I'm making this part up now. A myriad of in, intuitive beings celebrate their birthright along this lifeline. I mean, where did those words come from? I like them or not, I love them. And they did not, they just came. They just came. I wrote the whole poem in less than 20 minutes. And I did a lot of rewriting, of course, which I love. But not much really changed from that first draft of that poem. And that's spiritual creation.
That's a vision.
Yeah,
It's a that's
it is.
and you
I notice it incorporates that go quiet, which is another, a staple of our teaching is find the quiet place, find the quiet mind, slow your thinking down, allow your thinking to slow down, and allow the beauty to come in.
yeah. And the beauty is expressed. Jim expresses it through his poetry. I express it through this vision that I experienced with the Native American Indian people.
Mhm.
You find your own way. You're unique. You're not a carbon copy of this or that. The process of Jim going quiet and experiencing his talent as a poet is different, is exactly the same as I would experience my talent, but it's a different talent. You have to find your own talent. And then every time you find another piece of something you never thought you could do or wasn't there, you grow. You're empowered because it's a spiritual gift, the poetry. The words and how they come out, they can be interpreted in many different ways, but Jim remembers the feeling that brought out this beautiful, this sacred feeling. That's what you're looking for, the sacred feeling. And it's the same for me, Jim. All my life, I grew up, and everybody told me I could not write. Everybody. I was mathematical, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it was true. In that state of mind, I could not write. But behind those beliefs of who I am, now I've created 8 books. Obviously, I can write a little bit or a lot of it.
Yeah.
And I had to drop my image of who I am to be able to write. And it happened, I'm going to describe that to people so they can understand it. So I have this image, I cannot write. And I have this huge contract where I have to create a lot of writing. And I have the things in my mind, but I'm afraid because all my life I was brought up with, I cannot write. And then I met the wisest Native American elder. And she said, listen to this. She says, she saw me. She says, that's the guy I saw in my dream. He's going to write my story. And I heard about that. So I went and we met for lunch. And she told her story to me. And it made no sense. It made no sense. And I left it for 2 days. And then I said to myself, I better get it on paper or I'm going to lose the whole feeling of what she was writing. And it flowed like water. And I put in some of my own ideas. It wasn't just her story. It was some of the things that I wanted. And I read it to her. And I said, is this what you mean? And she said, perfect. I says, oh, I can write. She transposed all that fear. And it became, I could write. And I did all of that writing for that project. And then I started to create my first book. You have gifts, people. Stop letting the fear stop it. Don't believe what other people are telling you. These mystical gifts. When Jim became a poet, he became more of who he really is. And he had a gift. And it's the same way with him telling the story, Jim. It's a little bit like poetry, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And Jim was an actor before. And he learned to project his voice and he became comfortable as an actor. So it was only natural that when it comes to reading the story, he's much better at it than Harry is. I could read it, but it wouldn't be as good. He just has that gift that allows him to do it. And the more he does it, the more he enjoys it, the more he feels part of it. And here's the great part. I wrote the story. Jim narrated the story. It's one. It's not Harry did this and Jim did that. It's this. We became together and we shared love. And that is what we're trying to do today, is to share our love for something that will heal the people of Africa, the kids of Africa. And if you catch the feeling, you will see you are just a little kid. You see, every time you complain, you're complaining about you, something in you. And every time you see beauty, you are seeing beauty in you. And the kids, let me tell you something. I am older. The kids make me feel young. They bring life into me. And they say things like, I love you. And you go, ooh, I like that. I like that. So that is something really special. Okay, pretty cool. This is kind of fun, Jim.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying this. Question 4. How did Grandma Bibi make Zahara happy? Go ahead, Jim.
How did that? Um, I, you know, she loved her. That's how she made her happy. She loved her and she shared with her. And there is that spot where I feel so good when you come over, Zahara. I really, you make me feel so good. And it brings out my love, or in her words. And Zahara says, "Well, I love you too, Bibi. I love coming over and you sharing with me, and how it's like a circle, isn't it? It's a gift to receive and a gift to give."
Yeah,
So that
beautiful.
would be my response there.
Gerwin teaches this in the class. Maybe you could describe a little bit of how you see this story and how it relates to what you're teaching. If you're there. Maybe not. Okay. Oh, yeah.
Hi.
Good to see you, Gerwin. So
Good to see you too.
describe a little bit of how, when you're dealing with things like this particular story, how it relates to the kids and sort of the feeling of how it makes the kids happy when they're not always so happy when they step into the class.
Yeah, thanks so much for the floor. Hello, everyone. I'm so glad to be here and to follow up and to see the great sharing that's going on. Actually, on our side, I can say the story of Zahara relates to the children, especially when they come to the class, whereby you find they don't really get enough time to share with their parents, or you find they have questions, just like Zahara had a lot of questions to ask to her grandmother, Bibi McKenna. But the children over here don't really have that opportunity because they also have such questions to ask about love, to know a lot of things. But then you find they tell you that if we try to ask such questions, we are going to receive beatings from our elders at home. So when they come into the class, that's where they feel like they have that opportunity to share, to speak their mind. And once we see it, we share with them, we give answers to the questions that they have. They feel that bond that they don't really receive at their homes with their parents. So their parents are always distant, and this one makes them to not really have that much love with their parents at home and elders that they're living with at home. So they're always excited when they come to the class every Saturday. Sometimes they come, they've already prepared some questions that they're going to ask because they really need to know. But having that opportunity at home is really hard. So this story is really impressive because it also helps them to prepare them on how they're going to live their own lives as the youth, as young people. Some have the same age as Zahara in the story. So they come to understand a lot of things that they did not understand, and they now know how to behave, where to go to ask for help or questions when they have the kinds of friends who tell them about some things which don't really kind of make sense to them. But before they could just receive such stories from their friends, and they just keep these stories to themselves, they don't know who they can ask for advice. So sometimes they could just go with the flow, how they see other friends are doing in the community. But we are so thankful because at this time, at this rate, they really understand that they don't have to do things just because their own friends are doing these things. So anything that they don't understand, they believe that they have to go and ask questions and receive proper guidance. So this is really helpful because it has really helped these children. They really understand, even though they're still at the beginning of the classes. I love them so much because they're really sharp to understand. They grasp things very fast. And when they come up with questions, you really feel like these people really understand what I'm teaching them. So, and after asking such questions, they also promise to practice what they learn from the story, and which is really, really amazing because actually in this place, not so many youth have that opportunity to go through such teachings and to receive these teachings that are really helpful to them. So not really many. So for them, they are really thankful. They feel very lucky because these teachings are really transforming their lives positively. And actually, as I said last time, they are even asking me if I can provide books to them. They go with them at their home so that they can also start teaching their siblings at home and their parents so that they can also benefit from these teachings because they find them to be really helpful and really amazing. So thank you so much. We are really also glad because the more we share these teachings with the community, the more we also grow in these, and that love, that bond that we create with one another when we are sharing some personal stories and experiences. So these teachings make us to be like a family. So we come together as a family and we share and we feel so happy. So sometimes people come when they are not happy. Maybe they have a small problem at home. But when we start sharing, actually you find there is a good mood in the class. Everyone is laughing. We are sharing. So they're like, let us continue with this mood every time we meet. And it really heals all of us. It makes us to feel alive again. So at that time, we forget some of the problems that we have. So it's really impressive and really amazing. Thank you.
That family feeling, that's what we're,
Beautiful.
yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful. That was beautiful, Gervin. It's so it's so nice to hear of a school that's working so well. It's so nice to hear about the three principles being embraced in such a manner. It really is. It's a beacon for everybody. You guys are really doing a wonderful service.
Yeah, and how alive you have become with it, Jurin. Unbelievable.
Hmm.
You bring Africa into our hearts. We talk from our experience and our exposure, but you talk from being inside the bubble.
Mm.
In a way, Jim and I are outside of the bubble, but you bring us back, you bring us into it, and you inspire us to continue. Because imagine the kids are the catalyst to changing the community.
Oh yeah.
We
It,
always think of it the other way.
it's so gratifying to hear of this success. It really is. It's unqualified success is what I would say. My goodness, how wonderful that is. How wonderful for other classrooms, other kids, other schools, parents. It runs through everything. This is a beautiful movement. This is a gift to the world.
And each person shares it in their own way. They carry the torch inside of themselves, the fire inside. So Gerwin, I can't pronounce his name right, but excuse me.
Gervin.
Gervin, yeah, Gervin. He was a teacher at Success Roots, and he teaching within an institutional setup and helping and growing. And then he got a scholarship to do another course. So he left the school, but he's working now he brought the teaching into this community center with all these kids, and he's grown each step of the way. And he's sharing, and he's letting this Holy Spirit take him a lot where he needs to be. Not, I have an idea, it must fit into this shell. And when he came last week, it was Harry and Jim's book club. But when he came with spirit of wisdom. spirit of uniqueness of what it is to be inside the bubble of Naka Valley Refugee Camp. And so it became Harry and Jim and GERVIN'S book club. That's how it works. There's
Yeah.
no leaders. There's a family, and the family gets along as we share our ordinary self. Everybody thinks wisdom is about being the leader or being the boss or being the teacher, and there's a student. When I get like that, I get lost. We're all part. I love that concept. One family. One beautiful family. And Grandma Bibi understands that. And she brings that family feeling. And there's a concept in the story that we haven't talked. It's called sparkling eyes. That's what you're looking for in the students. Sparkling eyes, not memorization, not those sparkling eyes. And when their eyes are sparkling, when my own kids' eyes are sparkling, I'm happy because I know they've got the feeling of being who they are. And that's what we're teaching to, is these sparkling eyes.
That's good, Harry.
Yeah.
I like it. There's one other thing that I wanted to just mention, and we might mention this on other episodes, but there's a point when we're sharing when there's nothing else to say. And when we reach that point, it's all right for us to be quiet. Sometimes there's that urge to fill up that dead airspace. And really, that's the time to just sit back and not do that. That space is full of love. And it's just something to be aware of so that we can ride that crest together.
It's a silent feeling,
Yeah.
and to be aware of the power of what Jim just alluded to. It's actually deeper teaching than often.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it also points to, that's where all the healing is. There's not healing in the metaphor, in the concept, in what the construct that our minds come up with.
Yeah.
It's Sydney Banks, our teacher, would say, before time, space, and matter. It's a scientific way of explaining this quiet mind.
How about Mark? Did you have anything you wanted to share?
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I did. I was so moved by your poem there, Jim, about birthright. The animals and we have the birthright to live in love and harmony, freedom from our own minds, from worry, from anxiety, from memories. We have a birthright that it just does exist. It's a God-given gift, and we're just Gervin is doing such beautiful work keeping this alive in these kids. I can't believe it. They gravitate to it, and they know it's the truth, and you're catching them before they get all caught up in beliefs, and it's a precious thing. And that's about it. I just was so touched by the birthright idea, and for me, I'm learning a lot. I have a lot of access to the not worrying and being in beautiful state, but I'm learning about inspiration. And, even the inspiration to express love to my wife, for example. Maybe I'll go and clear the garage, clean up the garage, which would please her mightily, or, inspiration comes, to express love in different ways.
That's a beautiful word, Mark, inspiration. That's what we're taught. That's vision. That's the intuitive gift. And it's the vision. Inspiration is another word for vision.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Mark. One of the things I would like to mention is if Jim and I were doing this class tomorrow, it would be totally different than it is today. And that's okay.
It should be.
It will be. It would be.
Yeah.
It would be. It would be. This is where we are now. This is what the way it is coming out. And you accept that and trust that because it's the feeling.
Yeah.
It's not the 1, 2, 3. It's not the memorization. It's not even the respect of us as teachers. It has nothing to do with it. It's just knowing that what is coming out right now, if it is good, that is what God wants. And if it is not good, then hopefully we learn from it. But I can say to you, this what Jim has been sharing, what Mark Gervin has been sharing, and in the best of my ability, what I have been sharing. It's a beautiful feeling. And for Jim and I, this is a newness of sharing. This is an ordinary sharing. Very easy. Not difficult at all. And no prep. Jim and I did not talk about the class before. We just let it roll. And it rolled pretty nice. Pretty nice. Well, Jim, any final words? We'll let Sherwin. Sherwin, I will get you some more books. Sherwin was given quite a few books, but I can see he asked for more, at which point I said, no, you have enough. But now I have a little extra donation, and we will get that. You will tell me how many books you need additionally, because you have brought a very important point up. The students want the book so they can teach to their family, to their friends, or whoever it is, and they want to read. And I guess we forget, like when we have a book of Sydney Banks, we don't read it once. Over the years, we continue to read it because it's got an unlimited world inside of those words. And so we will definitely do that. So Sherwin, maybe you could say a final word, and then we will call her hasta la vista amigos and aloha and all of that type of stuff. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. So first of all, I'd like to say thank you so much for this. Actually, once you receive the books, it will really be such a great help to us and the children, because as I told last time, they've really been asking me, and I've been telling them just to be patient, to wait, and to believe. And actually, the prayer has been answered. So this is such a great news to us. And As a last word, I'd like to say thank you so much to the whole 3P team for these teachings, because the learning never stops. So the more we share, the more we attend, the more we learn more, and the more we acquire, sorry, the more we acquire more things that we can also share with others. And that is what the 3 principles are all about. Always sharing and always learning more. The more we learn, the more we keep going higher, the knowledge keeps increasing. And that's all that we are all about. So thank you so much for these classes. They are really so helpful to us and to all other people also, those who can't attend maybe physically to the classes. So they also have the opportunity to attend virtually, and they also benefit from these meetings. So it's really such an impressive thing that would really like to see continuing, to have more of these more often, because they're really helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of media. Is, we'll record it and this will be available. Last class, we had about 100 Facebook Live people. So we have the people here and then the people in Facebook Live. We hope, of course, it grows. But I am inspired, to use Mark's word, by the understanding that if we help one person, the whole class has been a tremendous success. And that is all we, and of course, you are mentioning something very important. You are getting a beautiful feeling by sharing love and understanding with the kids, with yourself. It's crazy, isn't it? It's like giving yourself a holiday.
Yeah.
So I guess we're ready to call her the end. That's kind of interesting. The succulent feeling. We don't actually want to leave it, but as we know, life goes on, and we will. So thank you, and we will be again next week for chapter 3, which I can't remember what it is, but we will read it. And this chapter, as I mentioned, understand that I would not be here without this chapter. 35 years ago, I wrote it. True, this chapter is made for the people of Africa rather than the people of Native American Indians. But the essence of the chapter was written 35 years ago. And it released in me an understanding that the spiritual feeling that Sydney Banks was alluding to, which is the real reality of life, does not have to be expressed a certain way. Find the way that connects with the audience, with the people, and open your mind to the guidance that God is giving you, that is directing you to go beyond this thing here. You love this thing. You wouldn't be here without it, but you cannot let it control your life. You can, and most people do, but they are not experiencing their unlimited potential. And that is what self-esteem is. That's what the sun is, your unlimited potential. And I love unlimited potential. So, what is a vision? Mark used the word inspiration. What is a vision? Jim used the example of poetry. What is a vision? This book is a thought created what Jim said to Harry. We need another book for younger kids. That became, this book is a vision.